Time for a visit from our favorite cartoonist. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Brian Duffy is here. Justin Roberts is filling in for Jason. You were pretty excited.
I'm very when I found out I was going to be here.
Really? Yeah.
Like the same day you were going to be like, this is great. I get to meet Brian Duffy. Because I watched last week when you did your drawing. I'm like, I want to see this in person.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
A lot. Well, it's, St. Patrick's Day, right?
Yep.
And I'm in full green.
You look good.
Me too. We
Depending if you're colorblind or not.
I am colorblind.
It looks green to me. It looks green to me.
From your point of view, yes, you are.
I was never allowed, I've been married for almost 40 years.
Wow.
And I've never been allowed, even before I was married, to go out and buy my own clothes because I would come home with some stuff that, it's a great blue sweater. No, it's purple. Okay.
Yeah, I've heard that myself.
So anyway, and besides that, it is St. Patrick's Day, but with a name like Brian Thomas Duffy, you don't need to wear green. So.
True.
No, you have it covered.
True. No one's pinching
I have
you.
it covered, right.
Okay.
So, since it is St. Patty's Day, and since I am half Irish, I'll draw, something that's in the, in the tradition of the day.
Okay.
Now, I had the honor of having. Oh, by the way, this is all for my sainted aunt Nora, who's my father's sister. She's the last of the family that is still alive, and just a wonderful, wonderful woman. Lives in Oak Park, Illinois.
Yep.
And I had a great uncle who came from Ireland, and by the name of Tom Segerson. His wife was my great aunt, and he would tell stories about leprechauns all the time.
Really?
Oh gosh, yes. Very believable ones. When you got older, you just kind of laughed him off, and because then he would start to work on the younger kids and tell them all about the stories of the leprechauns, and so.
Like, what are some examples of stories?
Yeah, what was your favorite part of a leprechaun story?
Well, they were completely different than what you would expect because they were all about coming out at night and the tricks that they would play. And so, we were in essence getting the true Irish aspect of these stories. And
was it like Leprechaun, the scary movie that was out a long time ago?
No, but they would pull tricks that were fairly similar to that. Mm-hmm. So, but he was a classic Irishman, always smiling, just one of the greatest guys.
I was lucky enough in our family that my grandpa's brother's wife was a war bride from Ireland, 197% Irish. I mean, still had the accent after living in America for 60 years.
Oh yes,
this was Christmas to them. The story, and she would tell the stories of the orange versus the green and all that stuff. And God rest her soul, when she passed away, there was bagpipes playing Amazing Grace and an emerald green casket.
Really?
Oh yeah, 197% Irish. I mean, this was Christmas for Aunt Margaret.
Well, I was going to ask. I mean, do people of Irish descent, do they get excited by this day, or are they just like, okay, here's when all the idiots
get excited by the day.
What do you guys think of everybody else wanting to be Irish on one day?
Well, we think it's an honor. But we'll let them in for a day. That's it.
That's it.
We'll let you in for a day. That's it.
No more than that. But it's. I had both my aunt and uncle had grown up in Ireland, and to the day they died, they both had that Irish brogue.
Mm-hmm, the brogue.
And they also spoke Gaelic too, very, very well. And one of the things that they would do would be, especially my aunt, would be to recite these epic poems from Ireland. And when my aunt was even in her 80s, she could remember the entire thing. So it was, needless to say, it was an interesting childhood to grow up with my aunt and uncle. And what made it really interesting too was the fact that the Irish seem to have things happen to them. Let's put it that way. My grandmother and my aunt and her brother, along with her parents, had gone over to Ireland. They lived in Joliet, Illinois. Had gone over to Ireland to visit family. And my great-grandmother died on the way over. And my great-grandfather died there. So there were 3 small kids that were, in essence, orphaned in Ireland, and they lived with their grandmother until they could, until they moved. A few of them moved down to London and then on to the United States. But they'd lost, you know, by that time they'd lost everything here. But it's, you know, it's one of these tragic stories. But they kept their sense of humor about things.
Now, when you were told those various leprechaun stories, is this what you envisioned in your mind, or is this something, a vision that your relatives shared with you that you're drawing with us today?
No, this is kind of, no, this is what I kind of envisioned in my mind about them. And like I said, it's different than what, you know, most people will think of the, you know, the leprechaun with, you know, with the gold, but there really are, they're almost like gnomes. A lot of people think leprechauns are Lucky Charms.
Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they certainly are not.
I'm talking about the cereal.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Brian, I mean, what people think of St. Patrick's Day, the story they think, I mean, it's not necessarily the real story of St. Patrick, which is amazing stark contrast when you sit down and actually think about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is, and but it also, the one thing about the fact that when you look at how many Irish had come over here, there was really 2 waves of them. One of them in the 1850s. You know, everybody thinks that everybody came into Ellis Island, but it's not true. Prior to Ellis Island, there was a place called Castle Gardens, which was tip of Manhattan, and it wasn't until the early 1900s that Ellis Island opened. But quite a few Irish came in the 1850s, and then, of course, in the potato famine, there were quite a few more that came here. Even though there was a potato famine going on, it really didn't have a lot to do with the potatoes because, you know, they were growing everything else on the island too, including sheep, mutton, you name it. But all of it went to the landlords in England. So
there you go.
Interesting.
Well, wonderful. Well, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
There you go, buddy.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
so much.